The conference room aboard the Apex Conclave station stretched larger than any cathedral on Earth. Captain Dae-jung stood in the center, surrounded by representatives from 46 alien species. Each one looked down at him from elevated platforms, their various forms casting strange shadows under the artificial lights. Some had multiple eyes, others glowed with internal energy. A few existed partially in dimensions his human eyes couldn't fully perceive. Dae-jung felt very small and very alone. Behind him stood his crew from the diplomatic vessel Perseverance. Hana kept her hand near her sidearm, though weapons were forbidden here. Taemin clutched a data pad, his knuckles white. Bora watched the aliens carefully, reading their body language and subtle communications. High Regent Vross dominated the chamber, the crystalline being towered 3 meters tall, his body refracting light into rainbow patterns across the walls. When he spoke, his voice echoed with harmonic frequencies that made Dae-jung's teeth ache. Humanity has been part of this council for 30 years, Vross began. 30 years of observation. 30 years of study. The council has reached a unanimous decision. Dae-jung's stomach tightened. Unanimous decisions were rare. They usually meant something terrible. Your species is dangerous, Vross continued. Not through malice, but through unpredictability. You advance too quickly. You adapt too efficiently. You refuse to follow established patterns of civilized development. Around the chamber, alien heads nodded in agreement. Some species murmured approval in languages that sounded like wind through crystal or water over stones. Therefore, Vross said, his form brightening with intensity, the Council demands the following. First, Earth will surrender all military command to Council oversight. Second, all human colonies will accept Council governance. Third, humanity will submit to protective supervision for 500 years. The words hung in the air like poison. This is not negotiable, Vross added. This is necessary for galactic stability. Dae-jung felt Hana tense beside him. Taemin's breathing had gone shallow. Bora's face remained carefully neutral, but her eyes burned with controlled fury. You have 72 hours to deliver your answer, Vross said. Refusal will result in economic sanctions, military blockades, and forced compliance if necessary. The Council has spoken. The chamber erupted with approval. Clicking, whistling, humming sounds of alien satisfaction filled the space. They believed this was already decided. Humans would surrender because surrender was logical. Survival was logical. Fighting the entire galaxy was not. Dae-jung raised his hand. The noise died slowly. May I speak with Earth's government? He asked. Vross's crystalline face somehow managed to convey amusement. Of course. We are not unreasonable. Take your time, Captain. Discuss it with your leaders. They will see reason, even if you cannot. The session ended. As the aliens filed out, a few looked at Dae-jung with what might have been pity. One small creature, barely taller than a child, paused near him. I am sorry, it whispered in broken standard. We tried to speak against this, but we are small. We are weak, like you. Then it scurried away before anyone could notice. Back aboard the Perseverance, the crew gathered in the observation deck. Earth floated in the holographic display, blue and beautiful and impossibly far away despite being only a few light hours distant. They're going to kill us all, Hana said quietly, if we refuse. Maybe not kill, Taemin corrected, his engineer's mind still working through probabilities. Subjugate, control, make examples of resistance leaders, install puppet governments, standard occupation protocol. Bora pulled up historical files on her terminal. I've been researching Council history. 800 years ago, a species called the Nithori received this same ultimatum. They refused. What happened to them? Dae-jung asked. Their homeworld is a quarantine zone now, a memorial to the price of defiance. The official records say the Nithori were destroyed in 3 weeks. 3 weeks against the entire Council, Hana muttered. Not bad. There's more, Bora continued, hidden in the archives almost erased. The Nithori held for 7 months. The Council lost 23% of its fleet. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. They never talk about it because it was supposed to be easy. Silence filled the observation deck. So we have precedent, Dae-jung said slowly. Species can fight back. Species can die fighting back, Taemin corrected. The Nithori still lost, did they? Hana asked. They're gone, but the Council still fears talking about them. That's a kind of victory, Daejung's communicator chimed. Admiral Jiwoo's face appeared, tired and ancient and carrying the weight of Earth's defense on her shoulders. She had fought in the colony wars decades ago. She had buried her son after his exploration ship vanished in deep space. She knew the price of hard choices, Captain, she said simply. What do you think? Not what did the Council say. Not what are our options. Just what do you think? Daejung looked at Earth and the hologram. He thought of his daughter Mi-sun, 8 years old and growing up on a planet that might soon be a prison. He thought of every human who had ever fought for freedom, who had ever stood against overwhelming odds, who had ever said no when everyone expected yes. I think submission is a slow death, he said. I think 500 years of occupation will break us in ways war never could. I think our children will grow up as pets, not people. And if we fight? Jiwoo asked. We'll probably die quickly instead of slowly. Jiwoo smiled, sad and fierce. My son used to say that humans don't do math well. We don't calculate odds properly. We just do what feels right even when it's stupid. Sounds about right, Hana said. Give me time, Daejung said. Let me think. But prepare for the worst, Admiral. Always do, Jiwoo said. And disconnected? The countdown timer glowed on every screen. 72 hours to decide humanity's fate. Daejung stood watching Earth for a long time, his crew silent around him. Finally, Taemin spoke. Captain, whatever you decide, we're with you. Daejung looked at his crew. Hana, who had fought in 3 colonial conflicts. Taemin, who had once jury-rigged a failing reactor to save 600 colonists. Bora, who spoke 14 languages and understood the unspoken rules that governed galactic power. They were waiting for him to choose between logic and principle. Between survival and freedom. Between kneeling and standing. He already knew what his answer would be. He had always known, because he was human, and humans had never been particularly good at kneeling, but first he needed to make sure Earth was ready for what came next. Send a message to Admiral Jiwoo, he said. Tell her to begin preparations. All preparations? Military preparations? Hana asked. Daejung nodded slowly. The Council thinks this is already over. They think we're too smart to fight back. Let's prove them wrong about at least one of those things. The timer continued counting down. Somewhere in the station, 46 species celebrated humanity's inevitable submission. They had seen the story before. They knew how it ended, but they had never seen humans write the ending. Earth's unified command center looked like controlled chaos. Screens displayed troop movements, fleet positions, civilian evacuation plans, and economic projections. Every screen showed bad news in different colors. Politicians argued in one corner. Military strategists debated in another. Corporate representatives calculated profit losses in a third. Admiral Jiwoo ignored them all. She stood before the main display showing the Perseverance's position near the Apex Conclave station. 48 hours remained on the countdown. Her old bones ached with the weight of what was coming. A junior officer approached nervously. Admiral, the Prime Minister wants to speak with you again. Tell him I'm busy. He says it's urgent. Everything is urgent today. Jiwoo sighed. Fine, put him through. The Prime Minister's face appeared on her personal screen. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Admiral, the Council sent another message. They're offering better terms if we agree quickly. Only 300 years of supervision instead of 500. They'll let us keep local military forces. They say this is generous. Generous, Jiwoo repeated flatly. They want to conquer us, but slowly, so it's generous. It's better than war, is it? Jiwoo asked. My granddaughter is 5 years old. Under their terms, she'll die a slave. Her children will die slaves. Her great-great-great-grandchildren might see freedom if the Council feels merciful. That's not survival, Prime Minister. That's extinction with extra steps. The Prime Minister looked away. The polls show 73% of Earth's population wants to accept the Council's terms. They're scared. They should be scared. So am I. But being scared doesn't mean we kneel. Meanwhile, aboard the Perseverance, Bora had been working for 18 hours straight. Her eyes burned as she scrolled through Council archives. The others had tried to make her rest, but she refused. Something about the Nithori situation bothered her. Something didn't add up. Found it, she whispered. Daejung appeared beside her so quickly she jumped. Found what? The Council's official records say the Nithori were destroyed in 3 weeks. But energy consumption records from that period don't match. The Council fleet used combat fuel for 7 months. Hospital ships were deployed for 7 months. Replacement vessels were constructed continuously for 7 months. They lied about how long the Nathori fought, Dae-jung said. Not just that. Bora pulled up more files. The Council lost over 4,000 ships, 23% of their entire fleet at that time. It took them 40 years to fully rebuild. They nearly bankrupted 3 member species paying for the war. Taemin joined them, carrying coffee that smelled terrible but worked. So the Nathori made it expensive. Very expensive. Bora highlighted sections of a classified report she had somehow accessed. And look at this. 12 species requested to leave the Council during the war. The Council refused, threatened them, forced them to stay. 3 species attempted rebellions in the following decades. The Council crushed them, but barely. The Nathori War almost broke the Council. Dae-jung stared at the data. They're terrified it could happen again. Of course they are, Hana said from the doorway. That's why they want to control us now before we get stronger. They're not afraid of what we are. They're afraid of what we might become. Back on Earth, Admiral Jiwoo received a priority message from Captain Dae-jung. She read it 3 times, then smiled for the first time in days. She pulled up the profiles of her best officers. Fleet Captain Hana would coordinate tactical operations. Chief Engineer Taemin had already started something called Project Defiance, that she wasn't fully cleared to understand yet. Specialist Bora was proving that humans could outthink aliens when properly motivated, and Captain Dae-jung himself was about to do something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Knowing him, probably both, Jiwoo started making calls. The first went to Mars Colony's governor. How many relativistic kill vehicles can you manufacture in 3 weeks? The governor paused. Those are banned by Galactic law, Admiral. We never signed that law. How many? 50, maybe 60 if we push the factories hard. But Admiral, using those weapons would make us pariahs. The entire galaxy would condemn us. The entire galaxy is already planning to conquer us. Being polite about our extinction seems counterproductive. Her second call went to Luna Base's commander. I need every missile platform operational. I need overlapping fields of fire around Earth. I need enough firepower to make any attacking. Fleet pay for every meter of space. That will cost everything. We have in reserves, the commander said. Good. Dead. Men don't need money. Her third call went to the civilian evacuation coordinator. This one hurt most. Begin evacuating children from Earth to the deep colonies. Priority to those under 12. If we lose, at least they might survive. The coordinator's voice cracked. How many children, Admiral? All of them. Every single one we can move in 3 weeks. Across human space, the preparations began. Factories that built civilian goods retooled for weapons. Merchant ships were armed and armored. Mining colonies fortified their positions. Retired soldiers reported for duty. Parents kissed their children goodbye. Aboard the Perseverance, Dae-jung made his own preparations. He recorded a message for his daughter, Mi-sun. He didn't know if she would ever see it, but he needed to explain. Needed her to understand why he chose this path. Mi-sun, he said to the camera. By the time you see this, you'll know what I decided. You'll probably think I'm crazy. Maybe I am. But I need you to understand something. Freedom isn't just about being able to do what you want. It's about knowing you have the choice. It's about growing up in a world where your future belongs to you, not to someone who thinks they know better. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The Council says they want to protect us. Maybe they even believe it. But protection that comes with chains is just pretty slavery. I can't accept that for you. I won't. If I'm wrong, if this costs us everything, I hope you can forgive me. But if I'm right, if we somehow survive this, you'll grow up free, and that's worth any price. He ended the recording and sent it to Earth with instructions to deliver it only if he didn't return. Hana entered his quarters without knocking. The Council sent a message. They want to meet tomorrow, final session before the deadline. They expect our formal surrender. Good, Dae-jung said. Request a live transmission to all Council members. Tell them humanity has reached a decision. What decision? Hana asked, though she already knew. Dae-jung smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had chosen a hard path and accepted its consequences. The only decision we could make and still call ourselves human. That night across human space, people looked up at the stars. Some prayed. Some cried. Some raged against the unfairness of it all. Parents held their children. Lovers made promises they might not live to keep. Soldiers checked their weapons one more time. On Earth, an old woman stood in a park in Seoul. She had survived the resource wars as a child. She had seen humanity at its worst and its best. Someone asked her if she was afraid. "Of course I'm afraid," she said. "Only fools aren't afraid of death. But I'm more afraid of living on my knees. I'm more afraid of my great-grandchildren growing up thinking submission is normal. I'm more afraid of losing who we are than losing our lives." Admiral Jiwoo stood on her command deck looking at the tactical displays. The odds were impossible. The math didn't work. Every simulation showed human defeat in days or weeks at most. But humans had never been good at math when freedom was involved. Her communicator chimed. Captain Daejung's face appeared. "Admiral, I'm ready to give the Council our answer." "I hope you've chosen the stupid option," she said. "The very stupidest," he confirmed. "Good. Make us proud, Captain. And if you see my son in whatever comes next, tell him his mother died free." "I will," Daejung promised. "But with respect, Admiral, I plan on none of us dying for a very long time." Jiwoo laughed. It was a harsh sound, but genuine. "That's the spirit. Go tell those alien bastards what humans think of their protection." The countdown reached 24 hours. Across the galaxy, species watched and waited for humanity's inevitable surrender. They had seen this story before. They knew how it ended, but they had never seen humans write the ending. The grand chamber of the Apex Conclave had never held so many viewers. Across the galaxy, billions watched on their displays. This was meant to be a lesson. This was meant to show what happened to species who thought themselves special. This was meant to be humanity's humbling. Daejung stood in the center again, but this time something was different. He stood straighter. His crew flanked him with military precision. Anna wore her decorations from the colonial wars. Taemin carried himself like he had already won. Bora watched the aliens with the calm of someone who understood exactly what was about to happen. High Regent Vross entered last, his crystalline form gleaming with satisfaction. The session was being broadcast live to every council member world. Humanity's submission would be witnessed by trillions. "Captain Daejung," Vross began, his voice carrying those uncomfortable harmonics that made human bones ache. "Has humanity reached a decision?" "We have," Daejung said simply. "Excellent. Before you deliver your formal acceptance, allow me to remind you of the Council's generosity. We offer protection. We offer guidance. We offer survival. All we ask is obedience. This is more than fair." Around the chamber, alien representatives nodded. Some looked at Daejung with pity. Others with contempt. A few with curiosity about how humans would phrase their surrender. Would they beg? Would they demand minor concessions to save face? Would they ask for mercy? "Your species is young," Vross continued. "Young species make mistakes. You think independence is strength. You think defiance is courage. But we have existed for millennia. We know better. We have seen species like yours before. They all learned the same lesson eventually. It is better to accept reality than to fight it." He paused, letting his words echo through the chamber. "So I ask you formally, before this council and before the watching galaxy, does humanity accept our protective mandate?" The chamber fell completely silent. Every eye, in whatever form eyes took for each species, focused on Daejung. Behind him, Earth appeared in the holographic display, blue and green and impossibly precious, home to 8 billion humans who were about to learn their fate. Daejung thought of his daughter Mi-sun. He thought of every human who had ever fought for freedom. He thought of the Nathori who had fought and died centuries ago but were still remembered. He thought of Admiral Jiwoo, who had already lost so much but refused to lose her dignity. He thought of what it meant to be human. Then he looked directly into the camera broadcasting to the galaxy. He looked past Vross, past the council, past all the species who thought this moment was already decided. He spoke one word in Korean, clear and absolute, "Ani." Then he repeated it in standard Galactic so there could be no misunderstanding. No. For 3 full seconds, nothing happened. The word hung in the air like something physical, like something that had weight and substance, like something that changed the nature of reality itself. Then the chamber erupted. Not in anger at first. In shock, in genuine, complete, total shock. Species that had existed for thousands of years, that had seen empires rise and fall, that had witnessed supernovas and planetary formations, could not process what had just happened. A species barely 30 years in the council had said no. A species with less than 1% of the Council's military power, had said no. A species facing certain extinction had said no. Not, we need time to consider. Not, perhaps we could negotiate terms. Not, we accept but request modifications. Just Vros's crystalline form flared so bright it hurt to look at. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious, Dae-jung said calmly. You understand what this means? Vros's voice had lost its harmonics. It was just rage now, pure and simple. You understand the consequences? Yes, Dae-jung said. We understand perfectly. Your species will be destroyed. Your homeworld will be occupied. Your colonies will be dissolved. Your people will be scattered across the galaxy as refugees and warnings. This is not negotiable. This is not a threat. This is simple reality. Dae-jung nodded. That may all be true. But for whatever time we have left, we'll be free. Even if it's only days or weeks, we'll be free. And that's worth more than 500 years as your pets. The chamber erupted again, but this time with anger. Aliens shouted in languages that sounded like breaking glass, tearing metal, crushing stone. How dare humans refuse? How dare they choose extinction over obedience? How dare they act like freedom mattered more than survival? One voice cut through the chaos. Arbitrator Thel of the Vindri Republic, a species known for neutrality, spoke calmly. High Regent, perhaps we should reconsider. If humanity is willing to fight, the cost will be nothing, Vros snapped. They are primitives. They have been in space for barely 3 centuries. Their weapons are crude. Their tactics are predictable. Their fleet is a joke. This will be over in days. The Nethori thought they could fight too, another council member added. They learned their mistake. Bora stepped forward. The Nethori fought for 7 months. The council lost 23% of its fleet. You nearly went bankrupt. 3 member species tried to rebel in the aftermath. Should I continue? The chamber went silent again. That information was supposed to be classified, buried, forgotten. How dare you? Vros began. How dare I tell the truth? Bora asked. How dare I remind this council that subjugation is expensive? How dare I point out that humans might cost you even more than the Nethori did? Impossible, Vros said. The Nethori were a warrior species. You are merchants and explorers. You are soft, Hana laughed. It was not a nice sound. We're soft? We're the species that went from first flight to moon landing in 66 years. We developed fusion power during an active war. We created artificial intelligence and then gave it rights. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own stupidity. And you think we're soft? Taman added quietly, we're the species that never signed your weapons treaties. We never agreed that relativistic kill vehicles were too terrible to use. We never promised to fight fair. That got their attention. Relativistic kill vehicles were banned because they were unstoppable. Accelerate enough mass to near light speed and nothing could defend against it. No shields. No countermeasures. Just physics and inevitable destruction. You wouldn't dare, Vros said, but his voice wavered. Why not? Dae-jung asked. You're going to kill us anyway. At least we can make it expensive. He gestured to the holographic display showing Earth. Every human colony is preparing. Every ship is armed. Every asteroid is a potential weapon. We won't fight fair. We won't follow your rules. We'll use every dirty trick, every banned weapon, every uncivilized tactic we can think of. And humans are very creative when properly motivated. This is madness, another council member said. No, Dae-jung corrected. This is freedom. This is what it looks like when a species chooses dignity over survival. You can kill us, but you can't make us kneel. That's the difference between you and us. Vros's form blazed with fury. Very well. The council will enforce its mandate through military action. The first expeditionary fleet will depart immediately. You have 3 weeks before it arrives. Use that time to reconsider. Use it to evacuate your children. Use it to make peace with whatever gods you believe in. We'll use it to prepare, Dae-jung said. See you in 3 weeks, High Regent. The council session ended. Guards escorted the human delegation back to the Perseverance. They were given 1 hour to leave council space. After that, they would be considered hostile targets. As they walked through the station corridors, aliens stared at them. Some with hatred, some with fear. But a few with something else. Something that might have been respect. A small alien, the same one who had apologized before, stepped into their path. It pressed something into Dae-jung's hand. A data chip. Council fleet movements, it whispered. Tactical formations. Ship vulnerabilities. Not all of us agree with this. Not all of us think submission is the only way. Good luck, humans. Make them remember you. Then it disappeared into the crowd before anyone could stop it. Aboard the Perseverance, as they prepared to depart, Bo-Ra checked the data chip. It was genuine. Someone on the council was helping them, maybe several someones. We're not as alone as they want us to think, she said. Dae-Jung looked at his crew. Send a message to Earth, tell them we're coming home. Tell them to prepare for war, and tell them we said no. The Perseverance jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the Apex Conclave behind. Behind them, the Council voted unanimously to deploy the first expeditionary fleet. 12,000 ships. The largest military force assembled in 3 centuries. All aimed at one small species that had dared to say no. Across the galaxy, the transmission of humanity's refusal spread. Most species watched in horror or pity. Poor humans. They had chosen extinction, but some species watched with different eyes. Species who had submitted long ago. Species who had accepted chains for safety. Species who had forgotten what freedom felt like. They watched humans choose death over submission, and they wondered if maybe, just maybe, humans were onto something. 3 weeks? That's all the time humanity had to prepare for the largest military force the galaxy had seen in centuries. 3 weeks to turn 800 ships into something that could face 12,000. 3 weeks to transform colonies into fortresses and civilians into soldiers. 3 weeks to prepare for what everyone agreed was certain death. Earth had never moved so fast. Admiral Jiwoo stood in the command center watching the chaos transform into order. Retired pilots were reporting for duty. Factory workers were pulling triple shifts. Scientists were weaponizing technologies that were meant for peaceful exploration. Every human in the solar system had become part of the war effort because there was no distinction anymore between soldier and civilian. They would all fight or they would all die. The Perseverance arrived back at Earth to a hero's welcome that felt like a funeral. People cheered for Captain Dae-Jung and his crew, but everyone knew what that no had cost. The countdown had begun. 20 days until the council fleet arrived. Dae-Jung went home first. He needed to see his daughter before whatever came next. Mi-sun ran to him when he entered their apartment. She was 8 years old and too smart for her own good. She had watched the transmission. She had seen her father refuse the council's demand. "Are we going to die?" she asked simply. Dae-Jung knelt to her level. He wouldn't lie to her. "Maybe, probably, but we're going to fight first. And fighting free is better than living as slaves." "I don't want you to die," she said and started crying. He held her tight. "I don't want to die either. But sometimes you have to stand up for what's right even when it's scary. Do you understand?" She nodded against his chest. "Will you win?" "I don't know. But I promise you this. Whatever happens, you'll grow up knowing your father never knelt. Can you be brave for me?" "I'll try," she whispered. The next day, she was on an evacuation ship heading for the deep colonies. Along with 3 million other children. If humanity lost, at least the children might survive. Might remember. Might someday reclaim what was taken. Dae-Jung watched her ship leave and wondered if he would ever see her again. Meanwhile, Taemin had been given unlimited resources for something called Project Defiance. Nobody except Admiral Jiwoo knew what it was, and she was keeping it secret. When Hana finally got security clearance to see it, she laughed so hard she cried. "You're insane," she told Taemin. "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Will it work?" He asked. "If it doesn't kill us first? Maybe, probably not. But definitely maybe." Project Defiance was simple in concept and insane in execution. Humans couldn't match the Council's firepower. They couldn't match their numbers. They couldn't win a conventional war, so they wouldn't fight conventionally. Mars Colony had converted every factory to weapons production, not normal weapons. Relativistic kill vehicles. Masses of dense material accelerated to 98% of light speed. Physics became the weapon. When they hit something, shields didn't matter. Armor didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the laws of physics, and those laws were merciless. Luna Base had turned into a weapons platform. Every crater held missile batteries. Every underground bunker held troops ready to repel borders. The entire moon was a landmine waiting for someone to step on it. Earth's orbital stations had been fortified beyond reason. Supply depots became fortresses. Research stations became gun emplacements. Even civilian habitats had been armed. If the Council wanted Earth, they would bleed for every meter. But the real innovation was strategic. Hana had studied every battle in human history. She had learned from Sun Tzu and Napoleon, and every guerrilla fighter who had ever faced overwhelming odds. She had created a doctrine built on one principle: never fight fair. "We can't win a battle," she explained to the assembled fleet commanders, "so we won't fight battles. We'll fight a war. We'll hit supply lines. We'll target command ships. We'll make them chase us through asteroid fields and into planetary gravity wells. We'll use every dirty trick humans have ever invented." "They'll call us criminals," one commander said. "They were going to conquer us," Hana replied. "I don't care what they call us." Bora spent her time analyzing the data chip from the anonymous council member. It contained detailed information about council fleet tactics, ship vulnerabilities, and command structures. Whoever had given it to them had risked everything, but it also contained something else. Messages from other species, short encrypted scared messages. "We support you but cannot say so publicly. If you survive, contact us. We want what you have." The council fears you more than it admits. 12 species had sent quiet messages of support. They couldn't help openly, but they were watching, hoping, praying that humanity might do what they had been too afraid to attempt. Across the galaxy, something unexpected was happening. The footage of Daejung's refusal had spread everywhere. Most species still thought humans were insane, but some were asking questions they had never voiced before. Why did we submit? What did we lose when we chose safety? Is survival worth more than freedom? On the Karathi homeworld, students protested. They wanted their government to support humanity. The government arrested them, but the protests grew. On the Silthene Confederacy stations, workers went on strike. They refused to supply the council fleet heading to Earth. The Confederacy crushed the strike, but 3 factories mysteriously exploded anyway. The council noticed. High Regent Vross sent warnings to every member species. Support for humanity would be considered treason. Any species that aided the humans would face sanctions. The message was clear: stay in line or face consequences. But the message that got through was different. The council was scared. Admiral Jiwoo received a coded transmission from an unknown source. When Bo-Ra decrypted it, they found detailed specifications for council ship shields. Someone had sent them the keys to break the one technology that made council ships superior. "How many allies do we have?" Daejung asked. "None openly," Bo-Ra said. "But secretly? Maybe dozens. Maybe more. Species that have lived under the council's thumb for centuries. They can't fight, but they can help us fight." 10 days until the council fleet arrived. Earth's preparations were as complete as they could be. Every weapon was loaded. Every soldier was ready. Every civilian had been evacuated from the combat zones. The only people remaining in the Sol system were those willing to fight. Daejung addressed the fleet one final time. 800 ships floated in formation around Earth, tiny compared to what was coming, insignificant by any mathematical calculation. But every ship contained humans who had chosen to stand rather than kneel. "I won't lie to you," he said over the open channel. "We're probably going to lose. The math doesn't work in our favor. But math has never been humanity's strong suit. We're the species that went to the moon because we could. We're the species that split the atom because we were curious. We're the species that looks at impossible odds and says, 'Hold my beer.'" Laughter echoed across the channel. Grim laughter, but real. "The council thinks this is already over," Daejung continued. "They think we're too weak to matter. They think our refusal was just pride before the fall. They've already planned their victory celebration. Let's make sure they choke on it. Cheers now." Humans cheering for their own probable deaths because at least they would die standing. Every ship that falls takes council ships with it. Every soldier that dies makes them pay. Every bullet we fire costs them something. We won't win, but by every god humanity has ever invented, we'll make them remember us. The channel erupted with noise, shouting, crying, singing. 800 ships ready to face 12,000. Admiral Jiwoo added her own message. To the council fleet currently in transit. "You think you're coming to subjugate primitives. You think this will be easy? You think we'll break quickly. You're wrong on all counts. We're humans. We don't know how to quit, and we're about to teach you why that matters." 5 days until the council fleet arrived. The entire galaxy watched. Most betting pools gave humanity 3 days of survival at most. Some generous odds went as high as a week. Nobody thought humans would last longer. But some species, the ones who had sent secret messages, the ones who remembered the Nathori, the ones who still dreamed of freedom, They watched with different eyes. They watched and hoped and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. Because if humanity could fight the Council, even for a little while, it meant freedom was possible. It meant submission wasn't the only option. It meant that maybe, just maybe, the Council wasn't as invincible as everyone thought. 3 days until the Council fleet arrived. Dae-jung stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, the renamed Perseverance now serving as the flagship. Hana coordinated fleet movements. Taemin monitored the weapon systems. Bora translated intercepted Council communications. They were ready. As ready as 800 ships could be against 12,000. 1 day until the Council fleet arrived. Dae-jung thought of his daughter, safe in the deep colonies. He thought of every human who had ever fought for freedom. He thought of the Nathori, who had stood alone and been destroyed but never forgotten. He thought of that one word he had spoken. No. Such a simple word. Such a powerful word. The word that had started this war. The word that might end humanity. But also the word that meant they were still free. The Council fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system exactly on schedule. 12,000 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They filled the void with metal and energy, a wall of force that should have made humanity surrender immediately. They were met with silence. High Regent Vross stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion. Around him, tactical displays showed the human fleet. 800 ships arranged in seemingly random patterns around Earth. Pathetic. This would be over in hours. Send the final demand, he ordered. One last chance to surrender. The message transmitted across all frequencies. Humanity, this is your final opportunity. Surrender now and face occupation. Refuse and face extinction. You have 1 hour to respond. Admiral Jiwoo received the message in Earth's command center. She looked at the countdown timer. Looked at her officers. Looked at the display showing 12,000 enemy ships. She pressed the transmit button. No. That was all she said. One word, the same word Dae-jung had spoken 3 weeks ago. The word that had started this war. Vross's crystalline form flared with rage. So be it, all ships advance. Eliminate human military capacity. Prepare for planetary occupation. The Council fleet moved forward in textbook. Formation. Beautiful, precise, exactly as their tactics had. Dictated for centuries. They entered the outer Sol system where the asteroid belt waited. Hana pressed. A button on the Indomitable 200 asteroids that had been hollowed out and filled with explosives detonated simultaneously. The Council fleet flew straight into the blast. Shields absorbed most of the damage, but most wasn't all. 17 ships were destroyed outright. 40 more were damaged. The Council fleet hesitated, regrouped, adjusted formation, humanities. 800 ships attacked from 6 different directions at once. Human tactics didn't follow any known pattern. Ships would appear, fire everything they had, then retreat before the Council could respond. They used planets for cover. They hid in the sun's corona. They fired from behind moons and disappeared into asteroid fields. The Council had superior weapons, superior shields, superior numbers. But they had expected a battle, and humans were fighting a war. By the end of the first day, the Council had lost 300 ships. They had destroyed 200 human vessels. The math still favored them, but this wasn't supposed to cost anything. Vross watched the tactical displays in disbelief. They're not fighting properly. They refuse to engage in direct combat. They're like insects, stinging and retreating. They're winning, his tactical officer said quietly. They're delaying, Vross corrected, but they're still losing. Continue the advance. The second day, Mars Colony launched its surprise. 60 relativistic kill vehicles, each one accelerated to near light speed, slammed into the Council fleet. There was no warning, no defense. The weapons moved too fast for sensors to track properly. 400 Council ships vanished in explosions that looked like small stars being born. The Council fleet stopped advancing. They were still winning. They still outnumbered humanity, but they were bleeding, badly. Vross sent a message to the Council. We need reinforcements. The Council's response was immediate and cold. Reinforce? Against humans? You have 12,000 ships. They have barely 500 remaining. Finish this. The third day, the Council fleet reached Earth's moon. They expected fierce resistance. They got Taemin's final gift to humanity. Luna Base wasn't just fortified. It was one giant trap. As the Council ships moved into bombardment position, every missile battery fired at once. Thousands of missiles all targeted at the same vulnerable points that Bora had identified from the stolen data. The Council shields failed. Not all of them. Not even most. But enough. 200 more Council ships died in the crossfire. And then the human fleet, what remained of it, attacked from Earth's shadow. No mercy, no surrender. Just pure, desperate fury. Daejung commanded the Indomitable as it rammed a Council battleship twice its size. The collision destroyed both vessels, but the Indomitable's crew had already evacuated to smaller ships. The Council crew hadn't. Hana directed suicide runs that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Ships loaded with antimatter flew straight into Council formations and detonated. It was wasteful. It was desperate. It was effective. Tae Min, working from Mars colony's deep bunkers, coordinated the remaining defenses. Even as Council ships began bombarding the surface, he kept fighting. Kept launching. Kept making them pay. The fourth day, something changed. The Silthine Confederacy withdrew their ships from the Council fleet. Just pulled back without explanation. 800 ships suddenly gone. Then the Karathi did the same. 400 ships, then others. Species that had contributed to the Council fleet were quietly leaving. Not joining humanity. Not fighting the Council. Just refusing to continue. Ross couldn't believe it. They're abandoning us? In the middle of battle? His tactical officer pulled up reports. Sir, there are protests on 37 Council worlds. Riots on 12. 3 species have formally requested to leave the Council. That's impossible. The Council is unity. The Council is order. The Council is fracturing, the officer said. They're watching humans die fighting for freedom, and they're asking why they accepted slavery for safety. On Earth, Admiral Jiwoo received reports of the Council fleet withdrawing ships. They were still outnumbered. They were still losing. But the math had changed. Then came the message that changed everything. Arbitrator Thel of the Vindri Republic transmitted on all frequencies. This ends now. The Vindri Republic formally withdraws from the Council and recognizes human independence. Any Council ship that continues this attack will be considered hostile to Vindri interests. The Vindri were one of the Council's founding members. Their withdrawal wasn't just symbolic. It was catastrophic. 8 more species immediately followed. Then 12 more. Then 20 High Regent Vross watched his fleet disintegrate, not through human weapons but through defection. Species were choosing freedom over unity, choosing independence over safety, all because humans had refused to kneel. Sir, his tactical officer said carefully, we've lost 41% of our fleet. The humans have lost 73% of theirs. But if more species withdraw, we could lose. Actually lose. We should negotiate. Vross stood silent for a long moment. His crystalline form had dimmed significantly. Finally he spoke. Send a message to Earth, request ceasefire terms. Admiral Jiwoo stared at the message in disbelief. They want to negotiate? They're losing, Bora said, monitoring the Council communications. Not militarily, politically the Council is falling apart. So we won? Someone asked. No, Jiwoo said quietly. Look at the casualty reports. 2.4 billion humans dead. 17 colonies destroyed or heavily damaged. 43% of Earth's infrastructure gone. The human fleet reduced to 200 operational ships. Mars colony was burning. Luna base was rubble. We didn't win, she said. We just didn't lose. The ceasefire was agreed to within hours. Not because the Council was defeated, but because continuing would destroy them politically. 32 species had withdrawn from the Council. The remaining 15 were negotiating new terms. The galaxy had changed. All because humanity said no. 3 months later, Captain Daejung stood in a memorial garden on Earth. 2.4 billion names were carved in black stone that stretched for kilometers. The list included Tae Min, who had died at his post in Mars colony when the bombardment finally overwhelmed the defenses. Hana stood beside Daejung. She had survived but carried scars that would never fully heal. Was it worth it? She asked, before he could answer, small arms wrapped around his waist. Misun had returned from the deep colonies. She was 9 now. She had grown up knowing her species chose death over submission. Dad? She asked. Why are people calling you a hero? You lost, Daejung knelt beside her. We didn't lose, Misun. We're still here. We're still free. That's winning. But so many people died, yes, and we'll remember every one of them. But they died free. They died fighting for what they believed in. That means something. What does it mean? It means you'll grow up making your own choices. It means no one will ever tell you that you have to submit because submission is safe. It means you're free. Mi-sun thought about this. I don't understand freedom yet. But I will. Because of what they did. Yes, Dae-jung said. Because of what they did. Across the galaxy, the Reformation continued. The old council structure collapsed. A new coalition formed, led by the Vindri Republic and including humanity as an equal member. Not a junior species. Not a protected species. An equal 23 species joined this new coalition. More were requesting membership daily. All of them had been inspired by humanity's refusal to kneel. The Nathori survivors, who had lived in exile for 800 years, sent a delegation to Earth. Their leader, an old warrior who had fought in the original rebellion, met with Admiral Jiwoo. We thought we were alone, the Nathori said. We thought our sacrifice meant nothing because we lost. But you showed us it mattered. You showed everyone that freedom is worth fighting for. Thank you. Jiwoo, old and tired and carrying the weight of 2.4 billion deaths, could only nod. We learned from you. You held for 7 months. You taught the council that subjugation has a price. We just reminded them,